Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for our webinar, Crafting a Patient-Centric Appointment Strategy. I'm Adam Ribbonfire, a content manager at Phreesia, and I'll be moderating today's presentation. Today, we'll share how healthcare organizations can use digital tools and automated reminders to book more appointments and reduce no-shows. Before we get started, I'd just like to quickly share some housekeeping notes. You can submit questions at any time using the Q&A widget at the top left-hand corner of your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we have time for. In the resource widget on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll find two one-pagers, one offering an overview of our patient access offering and another about our appointment reminders tool, plus a white paper about consumers' expectations for the digital patient experience. And if you have any technical difficulties, please click on the help widget. It has a question mark icon and it covers common issues. And since it's always one of the most frequently asked questions, this session is being recorded and you'll receive a recording by the end of the week. Now, our session today will start with a quick introduction of our panelists in Phreesia. After that, we'll discuss how to improve scheduling and how technology can help you develop a patient-centric appointment strategy. And finally, we'll spend the majority of our time in a Q&A discussion with our great guests. Now, speaking of guests, I'm thrilled to introduce our speakers for today. Mark Baerd is the practice administrator at Medical Center ENT Associates of Houston. And before joining the practice, he held prior roles as a sales representative for Family Sleep Diagnostics and a physician recruiter for Concilium Staffing. Trista Ricketts is practice administrator at Women's Health Specialists of Dallas. She is a nationally registered certified medical assistant and has worked in the healthcare industry for over 15 years. It's wonderful to have you both here. Now, before I begin the presentation, I'd just love to give a few brief words about Phreesia. So Phreesia is a technology company guided by our mission of creating a better, more engaging healthcare experience for patients, providers, and staff. We have real-time integrations with all the leading EHRs and registration, scheduling, and billing systems. We're a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. We've been named the top-ranked patient intake company by the research and insights firm KLAS for 4 years in a row. And our security and privacy efforts are recognized with the industry's top certifications. If you're interested in learning more about Phreesia, you can request a consultation using the drop-down on the right-hand side of your screen or visit phreesia.com. So to launch into our presentation, I want to start by talking about what we hear from your peers. If we want to talk about what the front office of the future looks like, we have to start with what the front office of the future looks like today for practices that are working with traditional, often antiquated scheduling processes. First and foremost, nearly all healthcare organizations, whether or not they're using digital scheduling tools, are facing significant staffing challenges. The difference is how they're dealing with those challenges. So today's labor shortages are felt much more significantly at healthcare organizations that are manually completing scheduling tasks. What do I mean by that? Well, we see reduced profitability due to patient no-shows when patients aren't consistently reminded about their appointments, or they're not asked to explicitly confirm their appointments, which can happen when busy staff have to make these phone calls. We see operational inefficiency at facilities that are manually calling or emailing patients who aren't getting back to them. We see patient dissatisfaction because of inconsistent communication. And we see a poor staff experience when you've got duplicative vendors, hard to navigate systems, and redundant work. And we can sometimes see poor health outcomes because not all patients are being engaged to make sure they show up and schedule those routine and preventative appointments that we know are really important. So what does a patient-centric appointment strategy look like, and how do we fix all of those things I just mentioned? Well, we believe it starts with a patient-centric, we believe you need to make your appointment strategy patient-centric. So what that means is providing a better experience for patients, giving them the ability to self-schedule appointments at any time of day, or for those organizations that prefer appointment requests, enabling staff to communicate with patients over two-way text to get their appointment scheduled instead of calling. So you're reducing that inbound call volume. It also means reaching out to patients proactively via text or email to get them scheduled for preventative or follow-up care. It means engaging patients to reduce no-shows with automated reminders that encourage them, like I said, to confirm, but also to request to cancel or reschedule their appointment without any staff intervention. So staff aren't reaching out to do that. And that ensures that you get ahead of gaps in your schedule without forcing your staff to be constantly reaching out to patients. If staffing shortages continue, manual outreach simply won't be a possibility in what we're calling this front office of the future. And we know how costly and significant those gaps in your schedule can be from no-shows. So to take that strategy a step further, an automated schedule management tool can automatically identify gaps in your schedule and offer them to patients who may want an appointment sooner. Those kinds of tools not only get patients in sooner for high demand appointments, but they also help you balance your schedule around providers and extenders. I'm going to talk about that kind of tool in just a moment. But to talk about reminders, as we discussed, appointment confirmation is key to reducing no-shows, and technology can help. But how you implement that technology is important. And we're going to talk to our lovely speakers about this in just a sec. But while we can customize Phreesia's platform and our reminders process to how our clients prefer, our best practice, what we believe, is reaching out early and having redundancies in place if patients are non-responsive. We believe that's really important. But it's hard to do that when you're making phone calls and asking for reminders in that way. You can't have your staff calling people 2 or 3 times for each patient. That can be a lot. So automating that is important. Best practice, we typically send an initial reminder to patients via text or email 5 days before your visit. Well ahead, that's what we believe is a best practice. And if they confirm then, some of our clients will send one more reminder the day before just to make sure somebody shows up. But we're not otherwise hounding people in those 5 days before because they confirmed. And if they don't confirm in that initial outreach, then we'll send a follow-up email reminder 2 days before. And if they don't respond to that, we believe it's time to reach out. It's time to try something different. Reach out with an automated voice call that can leave a voicemail. That's a different medium to get the attention of patients who aren't responding. Finally, by repeatedly and consistently engaging these unresponsive patients, we can reduce the likelihood of these no-shows. Lastly, before we get into Q&A, I just want to talk about that automated scheduling tool I was mentioning before, that automated schedule management tool. We call it Appointment Accelerator. It fills these unexpected gaps in your schedule due to cancellations and rescheduled appointments. And it moves high priority patients up in the schedule so that they can see a provider more quickly. That's really important for busy practices, full practices, practices with in-demand appointment types. So just to briefly explain how it works, when a patient cancels an appointment, Appointment Accelerator automatically identifies clinically relevant patients with upcoming appointments, maybe patients that have mammograms or child wellness visits. And based on customizations designed by the healthcare organization in consultation with Phreesia's implementation team, it then automatically sends those patients a text message offering them the opportunity to claim that earlier reopened appointment slot. We gamify it. We ask you to, first person to send back this word, reply with that word, gets the appointment. No waitlist signups, apps, portals, or staff work required. And it can also reschedule patients if they no-show or are bumped, and can fill underutilized provider schedules by moving patients from that overbooked provider to a provider with more time on their schedule. And if you'd like to learn more about this, you can request a consultation or email us or visit our website. All right, Q&A. Folks, I'm thrilled to get into this discussion. Mark, Trista, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to start by asking a little bit about what your practices are like and the patients you serve. Mark, would you mind starting?
Okay, so I work at a 5-physician ENT practice here in Houston, and we have a very busy schedule. Our physicians like to double book so that these no-shows, kind of cancel themselves out. And we introduced self-scheduling over a couple of years ago, and it's probably been the biggest ROI on anything that we've used for a couple specific reasons. It keeps our staff off the phones. We find that some of the longest phone calls outside of like insurance verification happen to be scheduling appointments. A lot of times if the staff isn't trained well, they can have these long drawn out conversations about what's actually going on. And then, something that could take, 3 to 5 minutes online ends up taking 20 minutes of our staff's time on one patient scheduling. So at first, obviously, anything new comes with some growing pains. Our staff was not excited about having a new task, but then after they realized the time they spend on it when scheduling patients is drastically reduced compared to answering all these phone calls and freeing their time up, they've been huge advocates for it and really like it. Also, with the same patient reminders and chat features, it saves them so much time calling patients, and we find that it's probably the least efficient thing we could do is talk to patients on the phone. It's because, even if we have to leave them a voicemail, they call back, we have to check their notes, we play phone tag. A lot of people don't check their voicemails. And it just led to them, like Ruben was saying, that they would have to, call 2 or 3 times for each appointment because our physicians did want these confirmed. So I know that they love it when they can go to the Phreesia dashboard and see, hey, the patient's confirmed, and then they don't have to do anything after that. It's hands off. And also with the self-scheduling, where it comes to like, okay, the phone lines are busy because everyone's tied up because it's usually our front staff answering the phones. We have an automated message there that says you can continue on hold, or if you're just calling to schedule or reschedule an appointment, visit our website and you can do so online without having to talk to anyone. And we've gotten nothing but positive feedback from patients on that because no one in this day and age wants to be on the phone.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we talked about at the start of this webinar, right? Is that, if people register for this webinar, we don't believe that people are going to wait on hold to book an appointment. So that's really helpful, Mark. I'm gonna get into kind of like the specifics of how you use that technology. I'm excited to talk to you about it. Trista, would you mind just kind of telling me a little bit about your practice and kind of the patients you serve?
Absolutely. So I manage a 5-physician OB-GYN practice in Dallas, and we are on a hospital campus, Presbyterian of Dallas, the largest hospital here. So it is a very, very busy area right outside of downtown Dallas. So we have a lot of very high volume, high traffic kind of appointment chaos going on. So we are treating women from all over the DFW Metroplex for healthcare concerns. We see a lot of patients at their most vulnerable state. So good communication is absolutely key with them. We also, I believe it is my doctor's mission to deliver every baby in Dallas. Unfortunately, that's not physically possible, but they sure try. So there's a lot of babies, and everybody wants to go run and say hi to the sweet little babies that are bringing in. And so it's a lot of fun. We get to work with a lot of great people and a lot of wonderful patients.
I love that mission. Wonderful. Thank you, Trista. So Trista, I want to talk about kind of your scheduling process in just a sec, but before we do that, Mark, you talked about self-scheduling and you talked about how your patients and your staff have responded to it. You mentioned that self-scheduling has also helped you with kind of how you spend on marketing and your ability to kind of to market a little bit smarter to your patients. Can you talk a little bit about that and the ROI difference you've seen?
Yeah, so for me, I have a marketing and sales background. And when I came here, the limiting factor to scheduling patients was always someone answering the phone. So when I'm going online and, creating these ads, whether it's Google, Facebook, whatever type of ads I'm creating, even, TV commercials, the limiting factor was, well, it has to be during business hours because as everyone knows, it's like an act now world we live in. And especially if we're doing online scheduling, it makes the web-based advertisement so much more efficient because these people that are seeing web-based ads are far less likely to call than they are to click through to scheduling. And what we find is people want to click schedule now and have it done, never talk to anyone on the phone. And also the biggest ROI is that now I can use my ad space 24 hours a day, where I was limited to, the 9 to 5 schedule. And it was like the most costly ad times. But we found a huge number of patients wake up in the middle of the night or staying up late and they're like, oh, I feel terrible, I want to schedule now. They're online and then they just book right then, and then we could follow up if they have some missing information or whatever that might be the following morning. but they book it then and then they stop their doctor search. They're like, oh, I have an appointment for 2 o'clock tomorrow. I'm set and I'm good. Where they're not going to call, leave a voicemail, wait for call back. They want something then and now. So it's been huge in that aspect.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for these people waking up in the middle of the night with a throat issue, but it's that's a great way that's and a unique way that I think you're seeing that benefit. So Trista, you use appointment requests, which a lot of folks, either because of like certain appointment types or just because of the way their schedule is, that is like a preference. So people are going on your website and requesting an appointment, not necessarily self-scheduling. Tell me about how you use that and how it's affected kind of are you seeing less inbound calls? Are you getting good feedback?
We are. It has been a lifesaver for us. Right now, as I mentioned, because our doctors are so excited about delivering babies, we actually have a very long wait list for new patients. The wait is typically 3 to 4 months for a new patient. So patients are able to go on our website, click request appointment for a new patient appointment. It pops up in our appointment hub, and then my staff has the liberty to contact the patients at their convenience. So if, for example, I have 3 doctors in the clinic that day and all 3 of them are in surgery, that is a great time to make our calls to patients and then contact them about scheduling their new patient appointment 3 to 4 months out. But otherwise, if it's 3 doctors that are in clinic and they're all seeing patients, that's not a good time for us to do that. So the patients can send their information in. They get a disclaimer that, we'll reach out to you, wait for us to call you. And then, so we do call them back when it's a little bit easier on the staff.
Yeah, that's great. And Mark, we've talked about appointment reminders. And I know, gaps in the schedule are never great. So no-shows, the ability to prevent no-shows, I think the role of reminders in that is important. What has that been like for you? Have you seen a noticeable decrease in no-shows? Do you feel like, patients are more aware of their appointments?
Absolutely. It just speaks back to what you were saying before, and what I can reiterate is that no one wants to answer the phone. So before, we might call 3-4 times and never get an answer, and then the patient still shows up. So then we're like, we never knew, and then they show up without their insurance, whatever, and then have to wait for insurance verification in our lobby. Where this case, it's like they get a text message, they can confirm it, and once they confirm it, then we have to do nothing after that. Obviously, we still get a fair number of no-shows. It's lower now than it's ever been in our practice's history, and I can guarantee that this has been a part of that. But even then, a patient does no-show, we're able to automatically send them a message that says, look, it happens. Click this link now to reschedule your appointment. So there's this automated system to bring them back into the practice.
That's awesome. And Trista, I think one of the things you and I have talked about with reminders is the idea that it's not just about sending reminders, it's about having the information in those reminders because you have multiple locations, you might have multiple appointment types. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's unique to OB-GYN practice, or unique to your practice, but not unique actually to a lot of practices that have like multi-appointment visits.
Absolutely. So we do, as you mentioned, have 2 locations, one in Dallas, one in Rockwall, and it has happened multiple occasions prior to starting up with Phreesia that patients would say, they'd show up in Dallas and we'd say, oh, your appointment was in Rockwall, or vice versa, or they would call and say, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to be there in 20 minutes and I don't know if I should turn left or turn right. So the nice thing with Phreesia is the appointment reminder actually contains the location of the appointment based on the codes that are integrated into our system. So the patient knows where to go and they can actually click the link in it and it shows them a map of the physical location. So that helps on that hand. So we've significantly cut down on patients showing up at the wrong location. And in addition to that, as you mentioned with OB-GYN, we have a lot of specialized appointment types. So a lot of our OB patients are going to see the doctor and have a sonogram. And our new patients are also going to meet with a nurse practitioner and the doctor and the sonogram. So there's 2-3 different appointments a lot of times scheduled for the patient. And prior to, they would get a reminder for each appointment type. And so they'd get confused. Okay, do I show up at 2? Do I show up at 2:30? Do I show up at 2:15? What time? I'm just going to split the difference, and then it throws the whole schedule off. Now they only get the reminder for the first appointment, and regardless of what they're having done, it just tells them that they have an appointment. So there's no confusion about what am I supposed to be doing. They just know, okay, I'm supposed to show up at 2 o'clock and we'll take care of everything from there. So it's made a big difference on patients showing up for their actual appointments when they're supposed to be here and at the right place. And it has significantly cut down on the phone calls of patients calling to clarify, where do I go? When do I be there? What am I doing? So it's been a huge game changer for us.
And I think what you've told me too is part of the challenge is when you use an EHR scheduling or something that's a little bit more basic, you don't want your calendar to change. Like, you don't want your internal scheduling system to change just because you want these messages to go out in a certain way, right? So your staff still see multiple appointment types, but you've been able to customize that reminders process, right?
Absolutely. It's fully customized based on the Phreesia end. So my staff looks at the schedule the same way they always have. Nothing has changed for them. The part that's different is what the patient sees. And that is the big part, because they don't need to see the multi-screen mumbo jumbo that we have going on, trying to coordinate chess on 3 different levels. It streamlines it, makes it simple. One point of contact and one reminder for the patient. They know where to be and when to be there. We'll take care of the rest.
Yeah. Trista, I want to ask you one other question. We talked about kind of redundancies and the ability to do voice reminders. You had an interesting story where a patient kind of wasn't expecting a voice reminder. And the way you explained that, I thought, would you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we, of course, have had the appointment reminders via text and email, where they get it on the 5 days before. And we followed the standard recommended pattern. So then they got it 2 days. And then now with the new voice reminders, the patient called us and said, I just got a voice reminder for an appointment, but it didn't come from your number. And I was concerned, maybe this is a scam. And we said, oh no, that was us. It's just you didn't respond 5 days ago, 2 days ago. That's why you got called. And she said, oh, okay, well, I'll be sure to respond quicker next time. So yeah, that got their attention. And definitely we've had a few patients ask about that. Say, I'm not used to hearing y'all actually call me. I'm used to just getting the text. And they said, that really woke me up and said, oh yeah, I need to do this.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things we talk about is making sure to communicate to patients when you do make changes. I think sometimes, not everybody sees communications, but we hope they do. And then kind of really working with your staff too, to make sure they understand that process. Mark, do you have any, we've got a little bit more time left. Mark, do you have any advice on how you align staff with some of these processes? Like, did it take, I know you did mention earlier that it's not always easy to implement new technology, that sometimes change is hard for staff. Do you have any best practices or thoughts on how you did that?
Yeah, so I made sure that especially with the online scheduling stuff, all of the back-end work had been done before implementing it. There's a little bit of work when it comes to setting appointment times, like Trista was talking about, like there's multiple ones and you got to be careful what the patient wants to see and that stuff. But in terms of delegating staff, the people that were working the phones and answering patient appointment calls were now using this Phreesia dashboard also. So I would start there with them before getting anyone else involved, because they're going to get excited because now they're making less phone calls and less follow-up phone calls. Because I know from my staff specifically that was the worst calls they had to make, was because then it not just is burdensome to call these patients just to confirm their appointment, but then it also generates a bunch of callbacks when they don't answer. So when they get that little checkbox saying they already confirmed via text message, they're thrilled. So they're like, oh, the list of 20 patients I had to call is now cut down to 7. They're like, this is awesome. And then once they're on board with it, getting the rest of the staff to do it was so much easier.
Sounds like you really have to work on that value prop, like the value proposition, excuse me, the idea that like, I know you hate X, this is going to help with that. I know you really, those calls can be a pain because you have so many other things going on. This can help with that.
Yeah, then they become, once you get their buy-in, they become the best salesman for me to get the rest of the practice on it, so.
And patience, I assume, right? I think, that's great. Well, one more question before we go, folks. I just want to think about, what advice do you have for an organization that is just starting to explore adding digital tools for appointments and scheduling? So maybe they, have their schedule on their computer and they can do the calendar on the computer, but they're not doing automated reminders, or they, they're not seeing like a full solution like the two of you have. Where do you think they should start, and what should they prioritize when it comes to like the kinds of tools or the processes that they're digitizing? Trista, can I start with you?
Absolutely. I would say before you start looking for anything is first listen to your staff about what their pain points are. That was how we got our staff to buy in, is okay, what are you guys suffering from? Because we actually did have a prior automated tool for reminders, and it did not work well. So part of that was involving the staff in the discussion of, okay, what do you need? What would make your life easier? And then involving them in the decision process, and like, okay, here's a couple of things we're looking at, play with it. What does it look like to you? How do you feel like this would be, beneficial to you? So they're the ones living and breathing it. So knowing what their pain points are, I think is the best way to figure out what tool is going to work for you. The other is going to be patient education. We did a big campaign before we switched over to Phreesia, letting patients know that this is the new way we're going to be doing things, coming soon. We posted about it on our social media. We're so excited about this. This is going to be so amazing. You're going to love this. And that got the patients bought in too. And we actually saw a much higher utilization rate from our patients than we had on our previous automated system. So definitely prioritizing patient outreach is a huge thing, making sure you have multiple lanes of communication, being able to text, being able to communicate through the website, patients booking their own appointments or sending requests through that. Having multiple lanes of communication for all of your different generations of patients is huge. You've got to get everybody the way they want to schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. That is why those voice calls, even though the person said, oh, well, I haven't gotten this before, you maybe reach somebody who literally, doesn't. There are people who don't know how to use text message very well or email, and that's okay. And we want to serve them too. So that's great. Mark, any best practices from you as far as kind of the what to do when you're adding digital tools?
The salesman in me wants to say, online scheduling, because it's like the biggest sales no-brainer. But honestly, if you're just getting into it, I would say the patient intake, just for practice optimization. Like, you can customize everything so tailored that you might be cross-marketing. We do ENT, so we also do hearing aids and sinus and all this stuff. Someone coming in with hearing loss, you might find they also suffer from sinus by doing these questionnaires, and then it's not you cut out the human error with giving this to the nurse, and it's like the doctor can see it right then. It's all customizable. Even with COVID, it was huge with these questionnaires. It's like you can implement so much patient intake stuff without even the front office knowing or changing anything for them, that it's like it really, really, really is beneficial to our practice.
That's great. Yeah, we would selfishly say too that a complete solution, kind of from before, during, and after that appointment is definitely the right way to go. So yeah, appreciate that wholehearted endorsement of that. Well,
and Adam, sorry, I was
no,
going to tell you, I actually had an interview today for a front desk person, and I actually mentioned Phreesia as a selling tool to convince this person to come to our practice, because she was coming from a practice where they did everything paper, manually. They gave people like 8-page packets. And I said, well, we automate all that. You don't have to worry about that. We use this great tool. So it's a selling point to hire staff too.
We're talking about staffing shortages here. It's a real thing. I think you both can say staff are not indispensable, that you need your staff, and that you want to attract, not only do you want to attract anybody at all and be able to hire, but you want to attract good people who value these kinds of things. So that's wonderful. That's great, Trista. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. Well, great. That is all the time we have for today. Unfortunately, it's been a really fantastic discussion. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Trista, for joining us. If we didn't get to your question, audience, in the chat, if you have any questions about Phreesia, please don't hesitate to request a consultation using the form on the right-hand side of your screen. We'd love to be in touch. Take a look at those resources we've given you on the left-hand side of your screen. We'd love for you to kind of check those out, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Adam.